Hi there, this is Adrienne Green, Realtor with Sampson Properties, and I wanted to talk to you today about how to be a strong rental applicant. As an investment property owner, right, as a landlord, I see a lot of applicants, and so I wanted to use my experience to help those of you on the other side of the transaction put your best foot forward when you're applying for a rental, all right? So the first, and all these tips, guys, they're not my personal preference or anything like that. They are practically what matters to myself and to other landlords as we rent, and to obligations that we have that we can't necessarily control. Okay, so don't get offended at me by any of them. It's not my personal taste or anything like that. It's just the way that the situation is. So the first one is, if you are a renter, as much as possible, do not have a pet. Okay, especially a large dog, a dog that is a breed that may be considered aggressive. And this is not, again, my preference, but I'm saying this because you are going to have a more difficult place finding a rental, all right? And part of that is, like, for properties that I own, they are condos, and the condo association, not me, but the condo association will have limits on the total max weight of the animal. It will have limits on the breeds of the animals. Depending on the condo, there can be different limitations like that. So if you want to be the strongest rental applicant and have the most places available to you for the best value, if you can avoid having pets, that will help you. And especially large dogs are the most challenging. Any dog or cat in general can be challenging. If you must have a pet, something that is kept in a cage would be ideal. If you could have a hermit crab, right? Hermit crab would be a renter-friendly pet, all right? We also want to be careful of large aquariums, but I think if you had a betta fish or something like that, it would be fine, or birds or other things like that that are kept in cages. That, if you have to have a pet, would be the most acceptable way to go. But a lot of landlords, a lot of rentals do not allow any uncaged pets, do not allow cats or dogs at all. All right, the second tip I have for you is to communicate. So as you're going through this application process and you want to put your best foot forward, communicate. All right, if you're working with an agent, communicate with them. If you are not working with an agent and you're just speaking to landlords directly, communicate with them. When they send you an email, reply back quickly, and keep your word. So if you say you're going to meet them at a certain time, meet them then. All right, let's say you're running a few minutes late, give them a call, shoot them an email, do what you can to let them know, all right? A lot of sins can be forgiven if you're just clear about your communication, all right? And that also applies to, let's say that there are some aspects of your application or your characteristics that are not great for a rental applicant. Maybe you don't have a good credit score. Maybe you had a bad, past due bills that'll show up on your credit report. Maybe you have a criminal history. Maybe you have something like that that is, is going to weaken your status as a rental applicant. Don't try and hide it. Communicate about that and offer solutions, or offer a reason, or offer something that you have done to make up for it, okay? So I'll give you some examples of that. So let's say that you do have this bad credit history for something like overdue bills. Show how far in the past that's been. Show how you've been making payments since then. If you have other documentation that will support that, bring that forward and address the problem. If, let's say, you have a criminal history, offer character references. Maybe you have history with drugs and you've gone through drug programs. Offer a character reference that people can call to show that you've made a change in your life, all right? You can always offer more information than the application is asking for, so keep that in mind if more information would help present you in a better light. And then the next tip I have is, it sounds basic, but I will be honest, most people do not do it. Fill out your application completely, all right? It just shows, again, that you're not hiding something, and it allows the property owner, the landlord, or the property manager to fully vet you, okay? And it's just kind of annoying when we get an application and the most common thing left out is the prior landlord's contact information. I am going to call the person that owned or managed the place that you last lived to make sure that you were not trouble and that you paid your bills on time. If you don't give me that contact information, I'm either going to try and find it myself or I'm going to ask you for it. So save us all time, money, and hassle by just writing it down at first, okay? And anything that is not filled in the application, I'm just going to ask you about. And for some people, an incomplete application is automatically grounds for rejecting the application. So fill out the application completely. That can only work in your benefit. If something you write down is, going to be a weak point for your application, address it, okay? Don't try and hide it, address it openly. My next point is that cash is king, okay? So often when you're applying for a rental property, you're going to have to pay the first month's rent, and then you're going to also have to pay a security deposit, which could be equal to 1 month's rent or 2 months' rent. All right, in the state of Virginia, you can charge up to 2 months' rent for a security deposit. So that means, let's say that you are going to rent a place for $1,500, all right? You are likely going to have to pay between $3,000 and $4,500 in order to get the keys to that front door, okay? So you need to make sure that you have that cash on hand to pay that. Again, you're going to pay a total of usually between 2 and 3 months rent to get those keys. The first month's rent plus a security deposit of 1 to 2 months rent, all right? Now, let's say again that you have some weakness in your application, all right? Let's say that you have bad credit history, or let's say you have no credit history. Let's just say you're young or you've moved from a foreign country and you don't have a lot of credit history. You can always offer to pay more. You can offer to prepay future month's rent, but that is not something that the landlord or owner can ask you to do, all right? Legally, there's a limitation on how much that landlord or owner or property manager can ask for someone to pay. So this is something you would have to offer your own in order to strengthen your application. So that's a little insider tip to keep in mind, that if you have a weak application, offer to prepay several months' rent or put a larger security deposit down. If I was you, I would offer to prepay some months' rent so that you're not just tying up more money sitting in someone else's bank account as a security deposit, but that choice is up to you, all right? So those are my big tips for you to be the strongest rental applicant possible as you look to get a place to rent, okay? So first off, no pets, or the smaller pet, the better, if you must have a pet. Second, communicate, address any issues up front, offer extra information that helps show you in the best light, fill out your application completely, and remember that cash is king. There are limits on how much the owner or the landlord or the property manager can ask for, but you can always offer more. So if you're someone who's looking for a rental, I hope these tips help you and help you put your best foot forward and have the most options as you find a place to live. If you have any other questions about being a tenant or renter and you want me to address them, or if you have any other questions about investing and evaluating tenants or renters, please feel free to reach out. I'd love to speak to you in future videos. Again, Adrienne Green, Realtor at Sampson Properties, and I'm here to help.